Before the next episode of X Job Downloaded starts, I have a big favour to ask. If you've enjoyed any of our episodes so far, please can you click on the follow button on your platform. I'm on Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon and YouTube. It costs nothing to follow, but makes a real difference to me as a podcast producer. Thank you. This interview is being tape recorded. My name is Maleary and this is X Job Downloaded, and today I'm going to interview Ben Close. Now, Ben is a former veteran with the British Army, served with the Coldstream Guards and is now a published author. Good morning, Ben. Thank you for meeting me at such an unearthly time.
Yeah. That's good.
Ben, where did it all start for you? I mean, you're from Luton, or between Luton and Kettering. Where did it all begin for you?
What, in terms of the book or in life?
In life. Let's start at the beginning, sir.
Well, I mean, from the beginning, it all pretty much started as me writing a diary when I was in Yemen. I was a private contractor once I left the army. And I had so much stuff on my head, so much shit in my brain, so much wanted to say. And in life, people used to say, you should write a book. But I had absolutely no interest. I'm highly dyslexic. I struggle to read and write, and the last thing I thought about doing was becoming a book author.
Yeah.
But when I was out in Yemen, in 2016, out in Yemen doing contracting, I had a bit of time to myself. I was quite lonely on my own at times, and I had so much in my brain that I wanted to say. I've got PTSD. I've been through counsellors and whatnot. Some of it helped, some of it didn't help. So I just started writing a diary down. Best way to describe it was writing a diary from the first time I could remember childhood, which was quite troubled, which was back from the age of 5, which is from what I can remember. So I just started jotting down on Microsoft Word. Just started jotting down my life story. From childhood, at the age from, like I say, what I can remember, which was about the age of 5, and it took me 7 years.
Wow.
It led me up till pretty much now. Every time I'd finished what I thought was my life story, I'd deploy on other deployments around the world, different contracts. Every time it was one of them sayings. Once I'd finished, I was done, but then something else come up, and something else come up. And yeah, I just started writing down my life. Some of it was very hard to write. Some of it was therapeutical. Some of it was troubling, and that's led me up till today. Basically, writing everything down, which has created this first book, and one to be continued, obviously, when more follows at home.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah.
So let me take you back to your 5-year-old child, and you've got vivid memories of that. And if there's stuff that you don't want to discuss, then do you know what, mate? It's your podcast. You can do as you wish. But what was life like as a 5-year-old?
It was good. It started off good. My mum come from a broke-up marriage, i.e., hence the Luton and the Kettering bit. Dad was from Luton, is from Luton. Mother, Kettering, Corby area. So that they broke up. So I started growing up in Corby. Unfortunately, Mum met somebody else, as you do in life. And he came into my life about the age of 5. Hence the reason I can remember from the age I was 5. And up until the age I was 15, I was basically subject to domestic violence through him. He fathered my brother and my sister. But in between that, growing up, he was very abusive to my mother. I was subject to. It's all in this first book, but he used to beat her, amongst other things. He's for years and years and years. And then when I had a brother and sister, I basically turned into a father figure for my brother and my sister. This is going back, from 10 years old onwards. And there'd be times where I'd be holding my brother and sister's ears, hold them so they can't hear it. It'd be knocking my mum about, smashing things up. I used to come home from school. I used to come home from school and do room clearances, which sounds mad at the age of 13, 14. Now looking back, I was basically doing figure finding built-up areas after school. I used to come home from school and used to go. Used to hide a knife or a weapon outside the house, and I'd come home and I'd go around every door, kicking the door in to see if he was in. Going in the bathroom first to the left-hand side. Mum still lives in the same house. I can remember it like it was yesterday. I'd go in the left-hand bedroom. Is he in the toilet? Is he in there? Is he in the kitchen? Is he upstairs? Is he downstairs? Yeah, and that was after school. As a teenager, you know, and it got to the age of about 14, 15, when I just sort of thought, you know, fuck this. It was hard because my dad has been on the wrong side of the law. He was quite a naughty boy back in Luton back in the day, in his younger years. He'd never touched me. He'd never lay a finger on me. He was scared stiff of my father, which I'll come on to in a minute anyway. And so he was scared stiff of my father. So I just had to witness it, and it was it. So sometimes I wish it hit me, because I used to get in the way of him hurting my mum, but then he wouldn't want to touch me. He just then deflected it, and then it went through times. It went through times where I used to think it was my fault as well, because the relationship would break down with my mum and her mum and dad, my grandparents, and I used to think, is it my fault? Is this my fault? And this is it was troubling, you know.
But that happens a lot. Kids are resilient in some areas, but when it comes to dealing with people's relationships, and they feel that they are instrumental in a breakdown in relationships. Certainly when it comes to, you know, your grandparents, my grandparents I was very, very close to. It's hard. Is your mother still around?
Yeah, my mum, do you know what? Very sadly, I did a podcast with a guy called Richard. It's on YouTube prior to the book coming out. And she watched the podcast on YouTube. It's hour and 45, is it 2 hours long? No, sorry, it's an hour and 5 minutes long. Hour and 5 minutes long.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until, I'm 38 now. She, like I say, there's been numerous breakdowns between my family relationship. I'm no angel, by the way, at all. Far from it. But I've always been one of these guys. It's always been in my life. It's been like, I'm the last to know, but always the one to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
Whether that be a death in the family, whether that be a problem, or you know, like someone needs help, I'll always be the one to go out and do it. But whether someone's broke down in a relationship, if somebody needs help, someone's poorly, excuse me. I've always been the one to pick up the pieces at the end, and to be honest, everything's usually, I feel like everything's my fault. And like when you ask her about my mum, she sent me a very heartfelt text message a couple of weeks ago when she watched the first podcast, and it was tearful. She basically apologised for me being like that, for me having to witness that. She basically told me I was a hero, and that if it wasn't for me, she couldn't have dealt with it. And she was sorry to put me through it. And I was like, Mum, you're a victim as much as me.
Yeah, massively.
And all I said to her is, I really wish you'd opened up to me before having to watch a podcast and me opening up to the world. I wish you hadn't took that for you to watch that in order to sort of come back to me. Do you know what I mean? But
those guilt, and bear in mind I was in the police for a long time, and dealing with domestic violence, and we dealt with domestic violence when I was a young police officer far differently to the way they deal with it now. The one of the major traits, as we said earlier on, is that the adult victim blames themselves for everything, because that's drummed into them by the perpetrator. The perpetrator they're narcissistic. They make the victim feel worthless, that it's always their fault. It's their fault that the tea's not on the table at a decent time. It's their fault that the kids are up late. And the three things that adults argue about is sex, children, and money.
Yeah.
If you break every argument down as an adult. So, I do get it from your mum's perspective, and she's sitting there looking at her son and thinks, God, I wish I'd have done things differently. But that, we can't redress history. We can't change. We can't change things.
Exactly.
When you are in the house and your stepfather's kicking off, is he still around?
Unfortunately, I mean, now that's another story. I mean, you're an ex-police officer, but from it got that bad. It got that bad. I had to separate myself. So I went. My grandparents from Luton basically were like my mum and dad, second mum and my first dad, because my dad wasn't really around that much. And so I moved into Luton with my nan and granddad, who are deceased now. I've actually dedicated this first book to my granddad. He was basically my father throughout life.
Cool, man.
And at one point my father rang me when people didn't have phones. He rang my nan, and he basically said to me, he said, where's this fucker live, basically? And he lived in Brayford Avenue in Corby. This is what I mean. I remember it all like it was yesterday. And I basically I locked the kitchen door from the outside. And I said to my dad, right, this is where I'm 14, 15. I haven't got this in me at this point in time. Do you know what I mean? And I just said to my dad, yeah, he lives here. He lives with his sister. And my old mum basically sent some lads around. But my nan overheard the conversation and spoke to my mum. Mum spoke to my dad, and then basically saved this bloke's life. Who convened mentally. I've done my research on him, and he's a counsellor in Nottingham now. And he should be in prison for attempted murder and GBH on my sister. But did he get locked up for that? Did he get in? No, actually, you know what? He basically at one point he shook my sister, gave her a brain hemorrhage, and she suffers a bit now and somehow, I don't know. Do you know what? My mum was one of these women, like a lot of women out there. I know one recently who nearly got murdered from her partner, and she just used to drop charges all the time. And back then, I suppose it was. I suppose back then there wasn't the. I mean, now the police and the CPS can prosecute, can't they? They come down on domestic violence very hard, but back then I think it was the law was a bit different.
I mean, you're absolutely right. We did deal with things differently, and by the time I left the police service, we dealt with them properly, because you don't always need to have a victim statement. It was, let me tell you, from a police perspective, it was frustrating, because the role of the police, whatever anybody thinks, is to protect life and property, and to protect somebody's life, that is the paramount thing. It's like joining the army. Why did you join the army? To protect people. That's what you do.
Do you know what? I'm not going to lie to you, Paul. This is why the book's quite in depth. I didn't join the army to serve the Queen and to serve my country. From a young age, like you say, starting at the beginning, from a young age, this is why when war follows you home, and the last part, when you read it, you'll understand a bit more. But did I take war? Did I take war to Iraq with me, or did I bring war to Iraq, or did war follow me home? I mean, did I have PTSD before I joined the army? Do you know what I mean? Or I don't know.
But it's going to be ingrained, isn't it? Because of the traumas that you went through as a child, that is the start of your probably. Look, I'm not a counsellor by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But that's probably where your PTSD started, because you've witnessed all of these horrendous things with your mother. You can't change somebody's mind when they're in a relationship. You cannot change. You can't get them out of that. So, what year did you join the army?
Like I say, this is all in this first book.
Yeah.
I tried from a young age. my granddad was in the army, my dad was in the army. I've got a bloodline going through the army in my blood, stretching back to before World War One. And funny enough, on both sides of the family as well. And weirdly enough, I mean, touch wood, God bless people who haven't come back. But for some reason, my granddad was one of the last of Dunkirk Beach, my great granddad, and we've had family members serve in every conflict from before World War One, and we haven't actually lost anyone.
Wow.
Which is lucky. That's not, no one's better at anybody else, but it's just. Yeah, so I tried to join up at 16. I wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go to war. I wanted to. I know it sounds mad, but I just wanted to channel that anger. I just knew I was a combat soldier from a very, very young age. I just knew I was a combat soldier, and just wanted to go out and go to war as a child. I used to play with action figures. I used to, my whole life was just about. I wanted to. I mean, I was young. I didn't know about politics. I didn't know about why people are going to Iraq. I didn't know why people were doing this, people were doing that. I just knew that I wanted to go out and be a soldier. Whether that's, I don't mean I wanted to go out and kill people from a young age. It was more, I just wanted to go out. I just wanted to go to war. I just wanted to be part of that.
That machine. Yeah.
But yeah. I just knew so I tried to join up in 2000. When I was 16. Whatever year that was, I feel like a dinosaur now. So let's say again,
2001. Sorry, yeah.
So I tried to join the army back then, and the sad thing is, like I say, it's in this book. When my granddad passed away, he was on his deathbed, and I was one of the last people he'd seen, and I promised him on his deathbed in Luton. He died at home. At Mossbank Avenue. I gave him a cuddle. I watched him deteriorate, broke my heart. Couldn't have cried anymore in my life. I tried, and I gave him a cuddle on his deathbed, and I promised him I'd become a soldier, and I'd make him proud. So give him a kiss, stuck my thumb up at him, and he stuck his thumb up at me. And that was the last time I seen him. That was the last time I seen my dad, my granddad, but it was my dad. And just talk about it now. When I want to well up, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And when I was when I was at school, like I said, I was dyslexic. I was in and out of classes. I used to act the clown because I was struggling with my writing, struggling with my reading, and stuff like that. So I got took out of school, went to college, but I wasn't interested. I wasn't interested in doing bricklaying courses. I wasn't interested in doing carpentry. I wasn't interested in anything else apart from just wanting to join the army. So from the youngest age I can remember, I went to the recruiting office, went through the system. I was going to go to the Army Foundation College. Got all the way to selection and failed. And
no.
Yeah. So I got all the way to selection and got there. I was fit. I channeled everything into training. Got to the selection centre and didn't even make it past the nurse. They basically went through my medical history, and I was given an inhaler at like the age of 12 years old, and they canned me there and then for having asthma. And I was just like, fuck me, what do I do? Like, I had no other plans. That was it, Paul. I had no other plans. But more than that, I'd let my granddad down. And we're talking, I'm 16 now. And it took me a while to comprehend that. So I just went out drinking, and I was depressed at the age of 16. I had things going on in my head. I just couldn't cope. 16, 17 I was. And so I decided, fuck it, I'll join the Foreign Legion.
Did you?
That was my next. This is before I'm 18 years old. I thought I'll join Foreign Legion at 18. So my old man helped me. Started googling Marseille and how old you can be to join the Foreign Legion. And this is what I mean. This is when I say I wasn't interested in politics and the country, and even less so now. But I was just like googling. But then, funny enough, there was a TA regiment around the corner from where I lived. So I just thought, I'll go and have a look at the TA regiment, as well as, I'm too young to join the Foreign Legion. If the army don't want me, I'll make me away. So I went to the TA centre, except I didn't tell them that I'd failed army selection. I didn't tell them. So we basically went, it wasn't JPA back then. It was all on, you could fail one and then go and join the other. So I they accepted me. I passed. It was the REME. I didn't know what a REME was. More electrical mechanical engineer. Look, all I seen was a uniform, a beret, and an SA80. And thought that's fine. Just I want to be part of that. But it wasn't really for me because I started realising it was a recovery unit, and I wanted to be a frontline soldier. And this is, I just knew, I don't want to be messing around with chains and trucks. I want to be out in the field. I was in the Army Cadets as a child as well. I forgot to mention. So I did quite a lot of fieldcraft as a child as well, And I just knew, I want to. This ain't for me. So I started channeling on the Foreign Legion as well as training for being TA Recce Neck. But my mum didn't want me to join the Foreign Legion. Obviously, why would you want your son to join the Foreign Legion? It's not like I've just come out of jail and I've got nothing else to do. So, so my mum we did an appeal anyway, and weirdly enough, a few months before I was due to join the Foreign Legion after my 18th birthday, I had a letter through from Frimley Park from the Master Service saying that the appeal was okay, and I had to go to Frimley Park Hospital and do a medical. And that was depending on the results, whether or not I was eligible to join the regular army.
Right.
So that was 2002. So to answer your question, in theory, I joined the military in 2001, 2002, and then I passed everything, went back for selection, smashed the selection, then obviously from there joined the regular forces in 2003, 13th October 2003.
So we all remember those days, don't we? I remember the days that I did my police exams, etc. But so did the Coldstream Guards choose you, or did you choose the Coldstream Guards?
I chose them. So I didn't know what. Let's be honest. Your recruiting sergeant has a lot to play in what regiment you join, because it depends on what they're in. But to start off with, it was I didn't know the difference between the Marines, the Paras, the Guards, the Royal Anglians. I didn't know, and I just wanted to be the best of the best of the best. I wanted the hardest training. I just wanted to be the best fighting soldier I could be. And after speaking to a recruiting sergeant, I won't mention him, but he's a good bloke. I'm sure he wouldn't mind. But after speaking to the recruiting sergeant, he was ex-guards and whatnot. I just thought, this is for me. This sounds good. You get the best of both worlds. You get to take the Queen, and this is when I started thinking, okay, patriotic and all that, and the history behind the regiment, and thought, let's go with that then. And so it basically came to me. I also did my research on it. I could have changed my mind at any time, but I just liked the sound of it from there as soon as I passed my training, and
fantastic. And because it's one of the 5 Guards of Foot, the Coldstreams, Welsh, Irish, Grenadiers, and Scots. Yeah, and there's a fantastic memorial by Horse Guards Parade, which depicts the 5 Guards of Foot, and it's amazing, and I'm really into it. You get signed up. Where did you do your basic training?
Catterick. We were one of the first, because obviously the Guards used to have their own independent training wing.
Yes. Purbright, was it a Purbright?
Yeah, Purbright, yeah. So we were one of not the first, but we were one of the first after they got rid of that. So it's basically us, the Guards trainees and the Paras, Henley's barracks in Catterick, and then obviously had the Gurkhas across the road, and then through the tunnel up in Vimy barracks, you had all the regular infantry battalions, recruits training, doing their training. So 6 months down up in Catterick.
I am really interested in this. So when you get to Catterick, you go through your basic training. At what point do they issue you with your bare skin and your red coat?
They don't.
They don't?
No. I can't say now. I don't know now. I've been out of the game a long time. But back then it was just Combat 95 and crap cap beret, but you don't get your blue on it. You don't get your colours. we went as far as number 2 dress in basic training. So
Right.
we passed out in number 2 dress.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't get a best. I didn't even look at drill boots, yes, but I didn't even get measured up for a red coat and a bearskin until I was probably 3 years in, because I was operational in Iraq and Bosnia and other things. So
Right. Okay. And like you say, the ammo boots, the drill boots. I mean, they used to get I used to take my shoes to Wellington Barracks, and they'd get the orderlies to do my shoes. They were like glass. Good old Steve Shield.
I used to cheat, but I used to cheat and put clear on them because I wanted to go on the piss. Yeah, I wanted to go on the piss quicker. Mitch should be killing, but Mitch should be going mad now. God bless him. But I just used to. I wanted to go out on the piss quicker and meet birds. So it's just really
yeah, Mitch, bless his heart. Very, very proud, very patriotic man. His demise was just incredible. You're posted to Aldershot from Catterick?
Yeah. We got told, me and one other, there was only 2 of us that passed out for our regiment. Obviously, there was others that passed out for other regiments. So
yeah.
Out of, I don't know, 30 guys, maybe 18 to 20 passed. I can't remember. Guys left, guys transferred, injuries, drug tests, couldn't pass certain things. But we were told, it was usually you'd pass out and go to 7 company, i.e. the ceremonial company.
Right.
But we got called into the office, me and this lad, and they basically said, you'll be going straight to battalion because they're operational. They're due to go to Iraq. And I was just like, all my Christmases have come at once. It's like, hadn't even passed out of training yet, 18 years old, thinking, fucking come on. This is what I joined for. It's all going right. I'm going to Iraq. Don't know when, don't know where, don't care. Let's get this done. So yeah.
Wow. So you never even got to do the bit outside Buckingham Palace, changing the guards there and all that?
No, not for years. Not for years, mate. I straight to battalion, straight on optank training.
So optelic, what one were they on at that time?
It was in 2005. Telic 6 it was.
Telic 6.
2005, yeah.
So you go to Bryce Norton, pick up your aircraft?
I was on it. I got married very young. I've been married a few times. And I think what I was trying to do was, I was trying to relive my past and try and make it better and prove everybody wrong. And I wanted to have something I never had, i.e. a stable family and an estate. And so I got stupidly married after passing out 18, and it was for completely wrong reasons. I wasn't in love with her. A child got involved, and it went terribly wrong. And I was too young. She had her own. She had some real problems, and that I was also on a course before Iraq. So I deployed about 2 weeks later in the rest of the battalion. I went to Bryce Norton in full green kit. Didn't have any deserts or anything. I literally deployed in greens to from Bryce Norton to Shiba. It wouldn't be Shiba. Sorry, it would have been the APOD in Basra. Yeah.
Wow.
And then we went from the RSOI package, and then it got straight through to the Chateau Hotel, which isn't a hotel. It was, but it was a war-torn hotel.
Yeah,
but more, yeah, bullet holes in it.
And the Coldstream Guards, were you on the mortar team? What was your role?
I mentioned the mortar team. I didn't join the mortars until after Iraq. I was in a rifle company. Right. I was in a rifle company. A lot of things, like a lot of this is about. I was in the rifle company, so we'd basically do the rotation would be guard duty, night patrols, day patrols, guard duty, constant. 4 days on that, 4 days on that, 4 days on that, and we basically go out on foot patrols, vehicle patrols during the daytime, nighttime, QRF as well, quick reaction force as well, and then obviously Sanger bashing on the guard, which is where one of my main incidents came from, which I'll talk about in a minute. Yeah. I had quite a busy tour of duty, shall we say, at a very young age, which I'm happy to talk about. It's in the book anyway. So
yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil the book because I want people to buy the book. But you obviously saw action out there because it was a very, very busy time out there.
It was. I mean, it was frustrating as well because I've done Afghanistan as well, which isn't in this book. That'll be out in the second book, because this life story was only, if I had created one book, it would have been about 700 pages long,
right?
And it'd be too much for the reader. So when people get to the end of this first book, they'll want the second one, which will be released in due course. But it was a very busy time. We were getting mortared, a lot of IEDs out on the ground. Unfortunately, not many follow-up shoots. And when I say unfortunately, it becomes frustrating when you're getting blown up and you're seeing people getting blown up and you're getting called as QRF to an incident and you've got no one to fight. All you see is blown up vehicles and essentially dead bodies from your own side. And there's no one to take it out on. There's no one to defend. It's just, do you know what I mean?
You're just mopping up the debris.
Yeah, basically, and showing. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I was in positions out there where we did have we did have full-on contacts, and like I say, that's in the book. They're in the book. I was also in unbelievably. I was involved in an incident out there, which it's in both other podcasts. One's not released yet. Yours will be out before this, but it was a few days after the Jamiat riots. I don't know if you remember, the two SAS lads were arrested, and Warrior went through the police station.
Yeah,
basically, it was a few days after that. We was in a snatch vehicle, and ours broke down, and a Warrior went past us, and so we had half a multiple on the ground. And I was obviously one of the lucky 5 or 6 with the class multiple that was with us. And we decided, we basically set up a snap vehicle checkpoint, and a car kept coming up and down, up and down. We thought they'd get to the RV space and turn around and come and get us. It was a long, very big convoy because the threat level went through the roof because of the Jamiat riots and whatnot. So there was a lot of non-movement of armoured vehicles on MSRs, main supply routes. And we were on our snatch breakdown, and Bowman, the radios, we couldn't get through to anyone. PRRs were out of reach. So we basically decided. I was on the VCP. But leading up to this point, there was an incident on the Sanger with me, 2 incidents on the Sanger with me, in which I'd use aim shots at a vehicle coming through the checkpoint. And like it's documented. It's on Radio 4 Kill Factor, BBC Radio 4 Kill Factor. It's documented on that. It's I spoke about it when I was going through therapy on GMTV. I did a lot of documentaries on GMTV when I left the army, and basically I took an aim. I did a warning shot at one vehicle, and then another vehicle coming through did a warning shot. He put his foot on the accelerator rather than the brake. I didn't have time to think about that. So I've had to use aim shots through the windscreen at the driver. There was no bomb. The QRF went out. He was a news reporter, but I followed Card Alpha to the letter of the law. I had to go into the RMP, do an interview afterwards, but there was no case to answer for. In fact, I got a recommendation actually for my actions. I didn't get the recommendation because I got arrested on R&R, but that's another story. Got done for DBH. Yeah, this is why I had to write. But yeah, going back to the vehicle incident, I was quite clued up. I was young, but I just knew how to be a soldier. I was one of the juniorest ranks there. It's probably the most junior Bob there. I'd imagine. But I just had something about me, whether that's come from my childhood or I could just make decisions and know what to do in certain instances. And in that incident, we actually had to abandon the vehicle and make our own way back to a nearest location, which was Shiber, good 12k away. I can't remember exactly. But we got contacted on the way past, from like a compound. Whether they were warning shots or aim shots, I don't know. But the thud and crack was going. We peeled off into the desert, all round the fence, 360 degrees. I had a UGL, underslung grenade launcher on the S80. I was like, I was dying to let one off. I was just like, shall I? You know. But we did. I didn't. No one returned around. No one returned fire because let's face it, we was on our own and we would have died. We wouldn't be here to tell the story now. So we basically tabbed through the desert, got to a checkpoint. There's a checkpoint. We knew there was a checkpoint. We'd gone through it a million times. But what I haven't said though is this vehicle that kept coming through the checkpoint. We'd been there too long. And I said, I went into a Bravo 20 mode, Andy McNabb nicking a car. And I basically pulled these guys out of the car. There was a firearm. And I said, let's just nick their car and drive back to Shiber. And half of the multiple, so like 3 guys was up for it. And then the others weren't. One was an NCO. So I had to then apologise to these Iraqis, put them back up after uncable tie them, put them back in the vehicle. And then we were compromised from that moment onwards. And leading up to the Sanger, up to the vehicle checkpoint, which is manned by the Iraqis, who were corrupt as well, which we all know they were corrupt back then anyway. We were like, how do we approach this Sanger? How do we approach this police station? And we basically pepper-potted towards it. We thought, do we try and go round it? Do we just patrol up to it? But the problem was, we'd been all, those guys in the car, whether they were dickers, whether they weren't, no one knew. These guys could have been waiting for us with an RPK on the Sanger just to do us in.
Yeah.
And so we tactically bounced forward as Charlie Delta fire team and took over the police station. They were all asleep, and we were going to take a police car. But during this incident, and this moment, a multiple from Shiber had turned up to the police station from One Royal Irish, not to find us. No one knew about us. No, they didn't know about us. They were on a routine patrol, and they were like, "Who the fuck are you?" And when we told them what had happened, they thought, "Nah, rubbish." We're like, "No, this is honestly what's happened." And when we got back, when they basically took us back, recovered the snatched vehicle, took us back to Shiber, got put in front of their commanding officer, who just shook our hands and said, "This is unbelievable. If you were my troops, you'd be writ up for this. Like you'd be,
yeah."
Unfortunately, you know what the guards are like. We basically got told this didn't happen. This didn't happen. I'm not slagging them off, but that's how it went down, and it kind of pissed me off a little bit. But yeah.
So you've done your tour of Iraq, and it was action packed to say the least, and the demons were just building up.
Yeah, I was quite trigger happy at the end. When I got home from Iraq, I got done for GBH. I was in a nightclub an R&R, so I was the best. I was doing really well. I was at promotion courses, had a recommendation, went on R&R. A fight kicked off in Kettering, and a guy basically beat my mate up. No big deal. Mate lost a one-on-one fight. It is what it is. To do with a woman, most fights are. And but for some reason he kept stalking me, and I was just like, and he come at me with a bit of force in a nightclub, and I just blacked out. I actually seen this bloke's face who I mentioned as a child. Seen this bloke's face, and could smell the desert, and I lashed out, cut his ear off with a glass, and he basically dropped. I got done for Section 18, got nicked there after my night out. He dropped charges actually, like later on in life. So luckily, but action packed to say the least. And I had that cloud over me because I was on bail, and we then got into another scrape in Leicester where I saved someone's life, got stabbed in the throat in Leicester, a young lad. I saved his life, but unfortunately, I ripped my shirt off, smashed it in his jugular, and he was dying in my arms with his brother. They'd lost their dad a few years before. Luckily, I managed to save his life. In the paper in Leicester, it said a police officer saved his life. It wasn't. It was me. I wouldn't let go of this boy. He was only 17 as well. I wouldn't let go of him until the ambulance staff. And I got nicked for violent disorder as well. So
on the same night?
Yeah. And then I had a GBH on me, and then I had violent disorder on me. I'm just like, this is shit. Do you know what I mean? Like all the hard work, it's slowly going away from me, and it was just like, fuck, what's going on?
What was the decompression like when you came out of Iraq?
There wasn't. From Iraq, there was no decompression. It was we was in, and we lost. Free company lost the sergeant on the last day of his tour as well, and which was we had a successful tour. You know, we done really well on that tour, and we basically achieved our job. And to lose a sergeant, to lose someone on his last patrol was just like, and he had children as well, and
heartbreaking.
And, absolutely heartbreaking. But yeah, it was a case of being in Basra on the Saturday, out in the piss in Aldershot on the Sunday. There was no decompression. It was actually, I've said this a lot of times, it was like we'd just been on a 6-month tour of Salisbury Plain. The way it was treated, back, weapons handed in, cleaned, parade, out of deserts, into greens, right, PT in the morning. It's like, what?
You didn't get any R&R when you were...
You did, but you have to, not straight away, like a couple of days in barracks, make sure all kit and equipment, main kit and equipment's in. We didn't have a victory parade in Aldershot. The medals were given to us. Basically, you had to go and sign for your medal for the Iraq tour from the clerks or whatever it was. It was literally like we'd literally just gone from Salisbury Plain, but with people dying, to Afghanistan was different, but Iraq. Yeah, we got back to the barracks. There was flowers outside for the fallen that we lost on the tour, and it was it was the same for everybody. We had all we had was we basically had a return from tour and went out in the piss as a platoon. That's basically we had platoon piss up, which ended up in fights anyway. That's all we had. That's like out in the piss in Guildford, I think it was. We had no.
I witnessed some of that firsthand. In Colchester, where a doorman decided to whisper in the ear of a para who'd been left. He was like the rear guard, and he basically said, "I hope all your mates die." And they all get back from Iraq. They go on the lash in Colchester, and there's a fight, and there's one para, and he knocks out these three literally knocks them out. And you know he's a para. His hair's longer. He's got a suntan. He's a big strapping fella. And the adjutant walks in. Sergeant Major, do you recognise any of these men in this video? No, sir. Okay, thank you very much. And that was it. And they just walked off into the sunset. You know, they knew it was. But, you know, people seem to forget that the army are trained to fight. And they need to have that decompression. They need to have that time to, and it's not going to suit everybody. But if it's not dealt with properly, then the incidents that you're talking about take place. Yeah,
well, yeah. I mean, I just had this black cloud over me from I think from childhood, you know, and it got to the point. I was very true. I was putting my name down for every tour going. But as one bail condition finished, another one came up. And when I look back, every incident that I had to do with the police, I don't get on with the police, but I've got my own reasons for that. But they were doing the job. I know good police officers.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But I've been on the wrong side of them. and I've been stitched up a couple of times to do with football and things like that. But it is what it is, and I'm still here to tell the tale. So, but I didn't help myself. But when I look back, there was obviously reasons behind why I was getting in trouble all the time, why I couldn't calm my anger down, I've always been a feisty guy, but that comes from watching your mum get knocked the fuck out of when you're from the age of sort of 5 up to 15. But it was just, I just always had this dark cloud over me. This was happening, and then I'd get myself. Problem I had, and probably still do up till today, is I'm that man that's there to help his mates out whenever they're and it's do you know what I mean?
How have your relationships gone? I mean, you've said that you've been married a couple of times. Yeah,
awful. I mean, it's not always my fault. First one was my fault, and then the army made me homeless. I'm against the system now because I'll go into that. But my relationships, I won't go into the one in a minute, but the previous ones, I've had lots of girlfriends, been married, so I'm on my third, but previously I was married, and then I got married again. We didn't have children, luckily. That went wrong. She was a big traveller from the Kent area, and that ended badly. And yeah, I went through a point where, and I'm in the same point now. So I'm not, but I am in a way of when I left the army. So when I left that, the relationships went bad. I struggle with my emotions, and I struggle with talking. And I'd rather go down the pub and have 5 pints and talk to my mates than I would sit on the sofa and confide in someone because I don't like to show my emotions. Do you know what I mean? Beer therapy, if you like. I think that's what we call it now. It's hard. You know, I've got a little boy now. I love him to bits, but I'm going to Ukraine in about a month's time.
Oh yeah.
Only for a few weeks to do a job that I've been asked to do. I'm going as a volunteer, so I'm just waiting for that to pay off, and then hopefully that'll end the chapter of my life of deploying abroad. But we'll see.
You've come out of the army in what year?
It was 2009, 2010. I was going for a medical discharge and for PTSD. And that was the hardest thing to come out as, because what I mean by that is no one spoke out back then. No one spoke out. And I come home from Afghanistan, did Iraq, Bosnia, Africa, and then went to Afghanistan on Herrick 7. And I was actually, was I with Mitch in Afghanistan? At certain points I was, from Keenan. But I come home from Afghanistan, I was going for a medical discharge, and once again, this hamster wheel about being on bail. I got myself in another scrape before I went to Afghanistan. So everything was going well again. Went a few days before I went to Afghanistan, ended up in a scrape with another bloke on a Saturday night in Windsor. Got lifted, got bail, went out on Sunday, carried on drinking, got lifted by the same officer, got nicked again. And I was just like, oh, what am I doing? And the army find that funny. As long as it doesn't come down on them, they find it funny at the time. As long as it, but I then missed my court appearance and went, because I got deployed to Afghanistan. So whilst I was in Afghanistan, they knew I had bail. They knew I was on bail, and the solicitor knew that I had bail. So I went to Afghanistan, missed my court appearance. I was then a wanted man whilst in Helmand province, because the caution that I received on the Saturday turned to an ABH, and the ABH on the Saturday turned to a GBH. And because I'd missed my court appearances, I was wanted for attending to the court of justice as well.
Oh my life.
Apparently I'd fled the country in order to evade court, but I decided to go to Afghanistan for it. So I had all that shit to deal with as well whilst in Afghanistan.
How did that all pan out for you?
What the end result?
Yeah.
The end result was Crown Court appearance in Reading, and I pleaded guilty to ABH, not GBH. The first ABH got turned back into caution. GBH got dropped to section 20 or 21 ABH, and the flirting of course justice got canned because there was nothing to answer for. I received a suspended prison sentence for 38 weeks,
right?
Which is where how the discharge happened. I was going through medical discharge for PTSD. I'd gone through EMDR therapy, and the day that I thought I was being medically discharged, went for the medical. They rushed through the medical. I went to see the CO, and what I didn't know was they'd actually not the regiment backed me up all day long on this. I have to admit, the regiment did. I seen the paperwork. They were supporting me, but some retired major from Directive Army Manning had decided, him and his infinite wisdom, had gone through my paperwork and seen a loophole in the system, which was my suspended sentence. Because it was under Queen's regulations, it was classed as a prison sentence. You see where this is going, don't you? They could get rid of my medical discharge and dishonorably discharge me over the space of a few hours. So I walked in there expecting a handshake and a sorry you're leaving and the support, but more than that, the support package that goes with a medical discharge, you know. So I went in there and then I was made homeless. Basically, you'd be kicked out of the army, and I was like, what? How? Which then took me a long time to get my head around. I was suicidal. I tried to kill myself, and look, thankfully I failed, but it was very close. I took a major overdose. I just did not know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. I had nothing. Luckily, I was in a relationship, so I had somewhere to live. But the army didn't know that. Essentially, I was made homeless overnight, and it's still a very hard pill to swallow, but I fought it, and I knew two lads who had suspended sentences but were still serving.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to use their cases in order to support my case of a solicitor. Found a very, very good solicitor from London, and we fought it, and they caved in, and it was like, yeah, we're changing this to a medical discharge and a war pension PTSD. So I did get that in the end, but I nearly didn't get that because some people don't know. Some people haven't got the willpower to carry on, and I've known people to take their own life, and I tried myself, and it was hard. It was a very hard time in my life, you know.
Yeah.
Some people might say bring it on yourself, but I didn't bring it on myself. There was obviously underlying issues there, you know what I mean? And when I look back on it now, and with this book and then the second one, all I want to do is raise. It's not a lookatme.com. Look at this book. Look what I've got away with. Look what I can do. Look at me. It's reading through it. You can suffer. You can be suffering from PTSD or mental health issues because you're an ex-police officer, fireman, just Joe Bloggs, just from a car crash, or witnessing something in the street, or like I said, when I was doing a podcast the other week with a journalist, I met that Roy Lerner, who was a victim of the terror attacks, and he's another example of how PTSD can follow you home. As in, be at home already, you know.
Well, you've gone through trauma your entire life.
Yeah.
It doesn't take a counsellor to work that out. You know, for the age of 5, your family have split. Your mother gets involved in an abusive relationship. The guy won't lay a finger on you because he's scared of your old man, but he'll knock your stepbrother and sister around.
Yeah.
You then join the army, and then you see atrocities. You know, your friends being killed. There's little wonder that your mind isn't always in the best place. And
well, you know,
I've simplified it there.
Say again, sorry.
I simplified it, but that's it in a nutshell, isn't it?
It's true in a nutshell. And then, like I say, when I was discharged from the army, I couldn't watch war films. I I couldn't listen to fireworks. I didn't want to go out because if I went out, I'd have my back to the wall. I'd struggle to be part of society. I drink too much now, but back then I drank too much, and it would just turn into me getting paranoid, fighting all the time, and that's when I got the story picked up from GMTV. I went through Talking to Minds charity. Don't know if you've heard of Talking to Minds, but I went through Talking to Minds with a guy called Rob Paxman. I was on GMTV for this, and I went through their therapy, which I have to say did kind of change my brain a little bit. But what it did is it reversed it. So I went from not being able to watch war films to not wanting uniform to thinking I want to go back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is what I've done. I then went out as a contractor for the next 12 years.
Wow.
And finished in 2021. So when I started on the boats, started going out on the boats, doing Somalian piracy, got in some scrapes out there with some Somalian pirates hijacking ships. Last one was in 2018, which I had to use arm. I basically had to use my weapon system. Well, won't go into it too much, but you get the drift.
Yeah.
And then went back to Iraq on the ground as a contractor and started doing jobs for the Department of Defense, the Americans, around Mosul, ISIS areas and whatnot. So, yeah, and then here I am.
Wow. So, and Ukraine's next?
Ukraine's looking next for a couple of weeks, yeah. And people are begging me not to go. But I feel like I have to go just to close the chapter of my life. I can't disclose who or why I'm going, but it's a short gig, and once it's done, hopefully I'm done, and then it'll come out in the second book or
third book.
Sorry,
the third book.
Second.
Yeah, but there's a third one there as well, isn't there? I mean, at the end of the day, you've led a very colourful life thus far. You've done things that some people would never consider doing. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I'm really grateful for your candour, because to talk through what you've talked through, it must be very, very difficult. And I hope that you found part of this cathartic. How do you see your future?
Do you know what? What I'm hoping is this my story, and I've already been invited to I've been invited to a few events. How do I see my future? I don't know. What I'd like from my future. First and foremost, I've got quite a few children. Most of them are grown up now. Well, my little boy, who's 7 years old. All I want in my life is for him to have a better one than what I've had. So that's my main goal in life. Whether me having to sacrifice things in order for him to do that, i.e., I don't know. Whether I have to pull myself away from things or whether I have to be part of his life, but not living with it. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. But my main goal in life at the moment is, one, my son, to make my little boy have a better future and make sure his dad's in his life more than what I've had, and for him not to witness things that I've had to witness growing up. That's my main goal. My second goal is, obviously I'd love to be happy. That'd be a bonus. But if my stories and my books and me speaking to people can either help identify people that don't know they've got PTSD to think, well, hang on, I can see a pattern there, or someone's partner to say, this is showing similar light to somebody else that I know. It could help. I could help people. I know I can help people, whether that's because they've been in the army, whether it's because they've been through, I don't know, abuse as a child, or, read through my stories and pick things out, identify with it, and bring them closure, help them reach out, help people in general reach out. That'd be a good future for me.
Because you've got the ability to talk. That's the first thing. You're a communicator. And there are organisations, the police, they would probably sit you down with victims of domestic abuse, and you could tell them your story, because there'll be a room of people that don't realise that they're going through the same thing.
Yeah, this is what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you find the writing the book process? You're dyslexic, so how did that work for you?
Fucking hell, mate. I must have tried to spell vehicle 100 times. Microsoft Word wouldn't even pick it up. But no, in a way, it was quite therapeutic, because I was getting things off my chest onto paper, onto a screen that I'd never told a living soul. Yeah. So there was in a way of it was quite therapeutic, and another part of it was other parts were hard to swallow. A few tears were shed in my own time, but essentially, it was. I felt good. It was like I needed to get that off my chest. Do you know what I mean?
And did you get someone to edit the book for you? And
yeah, so I like I said, I never thought about publishing a book. Even though people have said to me, you could have a film out, you could write 2 books, you could write books. Sorry, you've had a mental life. I just thought, but then once I'd finished my last deployment, which was the DoD contract, I just looked on my laptop and thought, how much have I wrote here? And there was 135,125 words. And I was like, fucking hell. So I started thinking, should I turn this into a book? But I didn't know how to do it. I looked on Amazon, self-publishing, and just thought, this isn't for me. But a friend of mine knows a book publisher. So she put me in contact with her. I sent her what's now called a manuscript. I always had to invest in it, but she's took the time, which is why the book is so professional. And it really, you'll see once you've read it. And so she was compelled by the story. It's the first sort of story that she's done like this. She does other sorts of work, but she advised me it should be 2 books, and where the cut-off point was, and then they basically turned that diary into a living story, and which is now what we've got, and I'm glad I've done it, because
good.
The diary or the manuscript that I wrote was obviously out of place, but everything in it is my word. No one has changed. They're my words. They're all my words. No, I haven't had a ghostwriter. All I've had is an editor to basically mop up the million spelling errors and grammar marks and stuff like that, and basically just replace where certain things should be for the reader, rather than that's basically how it all come about.
And the book is called When War Follows You Home?
Yeah, When War Follows You Home, the book is called.
And it's available through the outlets, your Amazons, and
it is at the moment. It's When War Follows You Home is available on Amazon. All you have to do is go on Amazon and type in When War Follows You Home, and you've got it on Kindle and paperback. Within a week, it'll also be available in Ingram Sparks, which reaches out to major outlets online, such as Waterstones and things like that.
Perfect.
So it won't be on the shelves. Maybe it will one day. I hope it does. However that works, I don't know. But at this moment in time, When War Follows You Home is available on Amazon, and we'll give it a week or so, and it will be available on Ingram Sparks. I can also get them printed myself, and obviously take them to events and
brilliant
sell them there as well.
Well, look, mate. You've been an absolute gent. I hope that your view of the police has changed by talking to me today. But before you go, I have to ask you this, and you've probably heard this a few times, but is there anything you'd like to add, alter, or correct in relation to the statement that you've made today?
No comment.
You're a good man. Listen, take care of yourself. Keep safe. Keep out of trouble. And I look forward to buying you a beer somewhere.
Yeah, I'm
absolutely serious about that as well. Take care. Have a great day.
Thanks, Paul.
God bless, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.